Well, good evening, Cedar Falls. Welcome to our regular City Council meeting for Monday, December 6th, 2021. I'll now call this meeting to order with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Miller.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Harding.
Here.
Dara.
Here.
Sires.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to approve the regular meeting
So moved.
of November 15th? Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. And Madam Clerk, do we have agenda revisions tonight?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. Items number 11 and item number 22 on the resolution calendar are being removed from the agenda.
Okay, thank you. And just as a note for item 11, that will be a conversation to have with University of Northern Iowa before we send forward this, the council considers sending forward an application from the Historic Preservation Commission to Preservation Iowa. I did hear from Preservation Iowa today. They're granting an extension for the deadline for this from tomorrow to December 21st. If we do wish to submit it, it would still be timely. So that is off the agenda for tonight, those two items. And I have two special presentations tonight. The first is going to be for December 7th in honor of Pearl Harbor Day. This is a proclamation that we issue every year. And just to ensure we remember Pearl Harbor Day, I will read it now. So, Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, December 7th, 2021. Whereas at dawn on Sunday, September 7th, 1941, the U.S. Pacific Fleet was attacked at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii by the Empire of Japan, suddenly and without warning. And whereas 2,334 American sailors, soldiers, airmen, and civilians were killed, and another 1,143 wounded in this surprise attack. And whereas, following the attack, thousands of young men and women bid their families farewell and entered the U.S. Armed Forces to protect the homeland. And whereas, the City of Cedar Falls and the University of Northern Iowa, known then as the Iowa State Teachers College, saw an influx of tens of thousands of Americans, especially women, as they trained on college campus to become Army Air Force yeomen, Navy waves, women accepted for volunteer service, and Coast Guard spars, Semper Paratus, always ready. And whereas December 7th, 2021 marks the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor and the entry of the United States into World War II, and whereas annual commemorations of the attack on Pearl Harbor are important for ensuring that the citizens of Cedar Falls appreciate the selfless acts of those Americans who served in the armed forces during World War II. Now, therefore, I, Robert M. Green, Mayor of Cedar Falls, do hereby proclaim December 7th, 2021 as Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day throughout the city, and I encourage all citizens to remember and reflect on the tremendous sacrifices made by men and women during World War II to liberate our brothers and sisters abroad from the forces of tyranny and oppression. Signed this 24th day of November, 2021, Mayor Robert M. Green. So I'll just also note the Grout Museum has a special exhibit these next few months about Iowan experiences in the Pacific Theater. Certainly invite everyone, encourage everyone to go visit that display to see what sacrifices were made by Iowans in the Pacific Theater. And as my second presentation, International Human Rights Day, I'll come forward for that. And then joining me for this will be Susan Langen, the chair of the Human Rights Commission for the City of Cedar Falls. If you'd like to come around here. Thank you, Susan. So this is in celebration of International Human Rights Day, December 10th, 2021. Whereas on December 10th, 1948, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a highly influential document which is credited with reducing human suffering and improving the daily lives of millions by affirming the enduring universality of its values of equality, justice, and human dignity. And whereas the Universal Declaration is based on the proposition that each person is entitled to a full range of human rights and that it is each person's responsibility to uphold them. And whereas the City of Cedar Falls, located on land of indigenous people, has been built by generations of settlers and inhabitants, including visitors, immigrants, refugees, and asylees, who have worked together to create a community where ultimately people can live and work in harmony without fear of discrimination. And whereas The City of Cedar Falls has committed itself to these values by adopting policies to provide equal opportunity for its residents and visitors, for participation in local governance, employment, housing, and public accommodation without regard to race, religion, color, national origin, ancestry, disability, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, familial status, or veteran status. Now, therefore, I, Robert M. Green, Mayor of Cedar Falls, do hereby proclaim December 10th, 2021 as International Human Rights Day throughout the city and encourage all residents to work together in the coming year to continue advancing the noble goal of respecting and fulfilling the protections contained in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights for all members of our community. Signed this 24th day of November 2021, Mayor Robert M. Green. So, Susan, present this to the Human Rights Commission. And I have a few, or if you have a few words, you can either do it here or you can come, probably easier to come around the other side there.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Green, for this opportunity and also for bringing about the attention to Human Rights, International Human Rights Day. I would just share that there is a theme usually every year for the Human Rights Day, and this year it's reducing inequalities and advancing human rights. So it has a lot to do with what we have been doing also in the Human Rights Commission. And so Mayor Green also asked if we could give just a quick update on what we've been doing in the commission. And again, we appreciate this opportunity to share with the City Council because, you know, we've been doing a lot in this last year and just, you know, trying to keep things moving. So a reminder that the mission statement is for the Cedar Falls Human Rights Commission protects human rights and promotes diversity and equity for all through advocacy, education, and outreach. So we continue to work in our 3 committees of education, advocacy, and communications. The education, we continue to work on training, and we're updating the binder with some kind of outdated information that hasn't been updated for a while. We continue to have discussions at the beginning of every meeting over topics. You know, we started with the uncomfortable conversations with the Black man. We also have talked about National Hispanic Day and also Indigenous Day, also just having discussions with our members. And then also some of our members have also attended some of the community events in the last few weeks. Nicole Hannah-Jones, the author of the 1619 Project, was at Waterloo West last week, and then some of the members also participated in the CAST, the book discussion that you and I held on the book CAST. So the Communication Committee just continues to, you know, try to make us more visible through social media and also through the Currents articles. The Advocacy Committee has really been working hard, and Ishan Vajpayee is here as the president or the chair-elect, and he's heading that committee, and that's the really one of our meat and potatoes, I think, committees, because it's, again, talking about how we're going to help people with filling out those forms, and we've come into some roadblocks and some barriers, and so we're continuing to have discussions on how we can best help people with that. We also are trying to figure out protocol and guidelines for helping people with the listening posts. I know we've had a couple situations that we've, you know, been doing things. We don't really have total protocol yet, but we still have had some opportunities to see what we need to do differently to make that be positive. So just in ending, we're looking forward to more information about the request for a special position with the Cedar Falls Human Rights Commission that came out of the racial committee. And we just really feel like, you know, as a voluntary commission, that we're finding that we have critical needs we cannot meet as a voluntary commission, that it would be very helpful if we had a person totally in charge that had more time and knowledge in these areas. So we also just are looking forward to maybe increase our number of commissioners. I know we started with 11 and went down to 9, and we're finding that that sometimes is very difficult to have everybody there. We are joining, Sonia Bach is joining us in December, which is, I think she's going to be an excellent member. She brings in a lot of knowledge and experience in diversity issues. So just the last thing is in our meeting in December, we will vote. Ishan will become the chair in January. I'll become the past chair, and we will vote on a chair-elect. So again, thank you for this opportunity. We really do appreciate updating everybody.
Certainly. Thank you, Ms. Langen, and thank you for your leadership this year on the Human Rights Commission. I look forward also to working with Chair-elect Vajpayee in this coming year and for seeing the great progress for our community that you'll bring forward. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Moving over now into public forum, speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics germane to city business. Is there anyone from the gallery who wishes to speak in public forum tonight? Yes, come forward with name and address for the record, please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Michael Martinez. I live at 1124 Main Street. So, Mayor, the reason that I came today is I realize that it's going to be set for the agenda, but it has to do with the roundabout on 12th and Main. So I live in the little Victorian house across the street from the rec center. I'm a Afghan veteran, served 29 years in the military, 20 of them active duty. I'm currently an emergency room nurse at Mercy One Hospital. When I retired in 2017, I looked for a community that had sort of the characteristics of this town, Mayor, that had the walkability, that had the sort of small town feel that this community has. As you know, the AARP just sort of rated our town as one of the most, livable for retirees. Well, that's me. So I hope that I'm going to need your help in preserving our home. We moved there with the intent of contributing to the community. As I said, I've contributed to my country for 29 years. When I came here, I volunteered at People's Community Clinic. They turned me down because they said that it's not a volunteer-free clinic. It's actually a clinic, so I worked there. I was hired there and worked in acute care. I worked during a time when we were seeing probably 50 or more individuals with COVID. My wife and I contracted COVID. She didn't do as well as I did. And again, I'm currently serving as an emergency room nurse at Mercy. So my life has been about commitment to my country and to my community. And I'm going to need your help in preserving my home. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So that will be, the agenda will have tonight setting the public hearing for that, and that discussion will be on the 20th, December 20th, as a public hearing for the design of that corridor. So how the roundabout will be configured will be part of that discussion. I look forward to that. Does anyone else from the gallery wish to speak in public comment tonight or public forum? Okay, I'm seeing none from the gallery. Any on Zoom tonight?
I don't see any hands on Zoom.
Okay, so last call. All right, then that is public forum, and I'll bring us over to our special order of business tonight. Item number 4 is a public hearing to consider taking action on a petition relative to the establishment of the Downtown Cedar Falls Self-Supported Municipal Improvement District, or SSMID. And is there a motion to receive proof of publication of notice of hearing?
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Madam Clerk, do we have any written communications filed on this item?
There was one written communication filed and was included in the council packet, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. So council hopefully had a chance to read those. For staff comments tonight, we have Shane Graham, who will introduce us. The floor is yours, Mr. Graham. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. On the agenda tonight is a request from Community Main Street to reestablish the self-supported municipal improvement district for the downtown area for a period of 5 years. This will run from July 1st of 2022 until June 30th of 2027. The SMID district is only good for 5 years, and then they have to reapply. And per state code, it's got to go through the city, it's got to go through our Planning and Zoning Commission with a recommendation to City Council, and then City Council approves it. So we did receive an application from Community Main Street. One of the code requirements is that it's got to represent 25% of the property owners within the district and a 25% of the property valuation within the district. The SMID district generally runs from about 1st Street down to 7th Street, and then Franklin over to the river is the general boundaries of the SMID. In their application, they did provide submitted signatures from 47% of the total property owners, which is more than the 25% required. and the total valuation of 61%, which is more than the 25% required. So the application meets the requirements of the SMID district. This did go to the Planning and Zoning Commission on October 27th, where it did receive a unanimous recommendation for approval. And Kim Bear with Community Main Street is here if there's any additional questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Graham. Ms. Berry, do you have anything you'd want to add prior to any questions? Okay, so with that, I will open it up for public comments in this hearing. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none.
No one in Zoom.
None on Zoom? Okay, so I'll consider the public hearing closed for that and bring us over to Part E, which is passing an ordinance amending Chapter 2 Administration of the Code of Ordinances relative to establishing the downtown Cedar Falls Self-Supported Municipal Improvement District upon its first consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open for council discussion and questions. Okay, seeing none, then it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us over to old business. Item 5 is passing ordinance 3000, granting a partial property tax exemption to the Vault LLC for construction of a storage and office facility at 6100 Production Drive upon its second consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any council discussion or questions for item 5? Okay, seeing none, then it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that does pass. And then item 6 is passing ordinance 3001, amending Chapter 24 Utilities of the Code of Ordinances relative to sanitary sewer rates upon its second consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any council discussion? Seeing none, then motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Taking us over to new business, the consent calendar is the following items acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Does any council member request to pull an item 7 through 10? Seeing none, does anyone from the gallery wish to pull an item 7 through 10? And on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
Okay, then I'll read these items. Number 7 is approving recommendations of the mayor relative to appointment of members to boards and commissions, and I welcome Russell Curtis to the Health Trust Fund Board. Thank you for your joining us on this. Item 8 is receiving and filing committee of the whole minutes for November 15th, 2021. Item 9 is receiving and filing departmental monthly reports for October. And then item 10 is approving applications for beer permits and liquor licenses. Is there a motion to approve these items?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Then those do pass, and that takes us over to the resolution calendar. These items will be acted upon by a roll call vote in a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Does any council member request to pull an item from 12 through, what's our final here, 27?
I do.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor?
Councilmember DeBerg?
19, 20, 21,
Okay.
24, 26, and 27.
Okay. Steve,
Mr. Mayor,
I'd like to.
just a
I'd
moment.
like to pull 12, 13, and 16.
So I hear from Councilmember Sires 13 and 15,
12, 13, and 15 is
12, 13, and 15.
Yes, and did somebody already pull 24?
Yeah.
We have 24 pulled, I believe. Yes.
Okay.
Did he say 15 or 16? I thought he said
Okay.
16.
Yeah, so for Councilmember Sires, I have 12, 13, and 16. Is that correct?
Right, because somebody else pulled number 24.
Correct. Okay. Any others? Okay, does anyone from the gallery wish to pull an item from 12 to 27? Okay, seeing none, then I'll read those items minus the ones that were pulled. Just make a note here. Shorter than normal. So item 14 is a resolution supporting Community Main Street and approving the authorizing execution of a Main Street, Iowa program continuation agreement with Community Main Street, Iowa Economic Development Authority, and the city for the purpose of continuing Main Street program in Cedar Falls. Item 15 is a resolution approving and adopting amendments to the Housing Choice Voucher Program Administrative Plan relative to the Section 8 Housing Program. Item 17 is a resolution approving and accepting a lien notice and special promissory note for property located at 610 West 28th Street relative to the rental to single-family owner conversion incentive program. Then item, let's see, we pulled out 22. It's not being discussed tonight. So the next one I have is 25, and that's a resolution approving and authorizing execution of 3 owner purchase agreements and approving and accepting 3 temporary construction easements with conjunction to the Green Hill Road and South Main Intersection Improvements Project. And the other 2 items, 26 and 27, were pulled. So is there a motion to approve those items? And I want to make sure I get this right here. Minus 12, 13, 16, 18, 19, 20, 21.
Mayor, I didn't have 18 on there.
Okay.
Would you like me to read them?
I can, yes, please. Go ahead.
I
Just to
have
be-
separate for discussion, items 12, 13, 16, 19, 20, 21, 24, 26, and 27.
27, okay. Yeah, so item 18, which will be part of this group approval, will be resolution approving a shopping center S1 zoning district site plan for patio improvements at 6607 University Avenue. And I believe that is, and item 23 was also not pulled, so that's a resolution approving and accepting completion of public improvements in Green Hill Village Estates. So is there a motion to approve these items minus 12, 13, 16, 19, 20, 21, 24, 26, and 27?
Second.
Motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And thanks for keeping me straight, Madam Clerk.
Anytime.
Item 12 is a resolution approving and adopting a revised job classification for the position of Public Safety Supervisor Captain in the Public Safety Services Department. Is there a motion to approve this item?
So move.
Second.
Motion and seconded. And Councilmember Sires, I believe you had brought this for consideration?
Yes, I just didn't believe that these went far enough. This is one of the problems we had with the crossover training between police and fire. I'd like to see it gone a little bit further, that's all.
Okay, so is there a motion you'd want to bring forward on this to amend it?
No, I just want to vote no.
Okay. And
I have a question.
yes, Councilmember Harding.
On these ones, and maybe this is for Attorney Rogers, I believe we're nearing the end of the 45 days or from the ruling. I don't know the exact dates. Based off of what I read in the packet, it said that October 22nd, we had till today. Is that correct? To change the job classification?
The changes to the job classifications need to be made. We're within a couple days of the deadline, so doesn't mean they can't be changed in the future again. But for now, these need to be approved in accordance with the court's order.
What happens if we don't approve them?
I don't want to get into what the court might do, but we would be in violation of the court's order. That's not a position council wants to be in, I do not believe.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Dura?
we routinely, say that quickly, routinely change job classifications. This was pretty minor changes. Is that correct?
Yeah. From my perspective, the changes are relatively minor and reflect a lot of what practice has been.
I guess I think.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we
Or
can,
as
we
soon as
can.
you're- Okay.
It's a tough subject. I realize that goes back to the PSO thing. I personally think it's a big change, and I wish we could have talked about it more and had a little more time rather than just voted on it right at the deadline. So,
And I'll just note too, that is, as part of our goal-setting session, that can be a discussion to continue changes for that classification if we want. And provide, as Councilmember Sires alluded to, having more specific or more stringent requirements could be part of that discussion as well. So that'll occur later this week if you desire. So is any other comments or items for 12 you want to discuss? Okay, seeing none, then it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Nay.
5 voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Bringing us over to 13, similarly, it's a resolution approving and adopting a revised job classification for the position of Public Safety Supervisor Lieutenant in the Public Safety Services Department. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
second.
Motion approved. And anyone wish to discuss this item?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Sires.
Mr. Mayor, I believe this one just goes the same way. I think we need to have more experience on the job, and I won't waste anybody's time, but that's the way I feel.
Okay, thank you. So that item, is if anyone else wishes to discuss this or from council?
Same
Then-
thoughts as the previous one.
Okay. So motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Nay.
5 voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Bringing us over to item 16, which is a resolution approving and accepting the contract and bond for Peters Construction Corporation for the City Hall remodel project. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. And Councilmember Sires, you brought this one out for separate discussion?
Yes, I did. I just wanted to go on record again as being against $4.5 million spent of the taxpayers' money. I just want to go down showing that I think we could spend our money a little more wisely. That's all.
Okay, thank you. And anyone else wish to discuss the item? Okay, seeing none, then it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Nay.
6 voting aye, 1 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 19 is a resolution approving the preliminary plat of Creekside Luxury Condos. Is there a motion to approve? Motion and seconded, and Councilmember DeBury, you had a question or comment about it?
Well, 19, 20, and 21 kind of, well, they all go together. And I'd had a few questions that had been submitted to me from some of the residents that were next door. So I wanted an opportunity just to read the questions that the public had asked and
Certainly.
get a quick response to it, if that's okay. Their first question was regarding the berm that was to be built on the west edge. And their question was, will it be built right away rather than in stages?
Yes, the developer did agree. The neighbors had asked for that to be built in the first phase of construction, and the developer did agree to that.
So will it be the entire length of the berm or just whatever's in the first stage?
It'll be the entire length of the property.
And their
Yes.
question that also went along with that would be the trees that were to be planted on top of the berm. Would those be planted at that time also, so that they're all about the same height, or will they be planted in stages?
The developer has chosen to plant those in stages with the phasing of the project.
So when they do it in stages, will they try to put more mature trees with each stage so that they try to be a little bit symmetrical?
You know, I don't know what the answer to that question is. Probably a question for the applicant. I don't know if the developer's got a representative here in the.
Or if they're aware at least that that's what the residents behind it had asked, they could try to consider that. That would be appreciated.
Okay, certainly you can pass that along to the developer.
Okay. And then they also questioned why they were starting on the south instead of the north end of the development.
I think that was a choice that they made based on probably stormwater management and how they were going to plan to phase the development and the access points. Again, that's a question for the developer, and I think it was discussed at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the developer made it clear that's where they wanted to start.
Yeah, I know it was addressed at the P&Z, and that's when, after that, that those residents brought up the questions, because they wanted to know whose idea it was, whether it was required by the city or if it was the developer's driven.
The developer submitted the phasing plan, and the staff evaluated the phasing plan.
So it wasn't required by the city?
No.
And then they talked about water, I know quite a bit, and there's some detention ponds that would be built. Their question was, who is responsible for the maintenance of those ponds?
The owners of the property will be responsible for the maintenance of the stormwater management.
And those would not later be turned over to the city?
No.
And then their other question was, there'd been some question about mowing during the last year or two of that area. Their question was, who would take care of compliance issues to make sure that issues regarding maybe code violations would be handled?
Well, certainly we'd handle any mowing complaints the same way we handle mowing complaints anywhere in the city. So if they're not mowing their property according to city ordinances, we would, if somebody notified the city, we would investigate.
Okay. And their last question was regarding the water issue. If you could just explain a little bit what the water issue is and how this development impacts or doesn't impact the neighbors.
Right. So right now, it's basically an open field. There is a partial berm on the property to the, that's between the property and the property to the west. But however, there is, sheet flow runoff right now because it's undeveloped. With development, that should significantly improve the situation with any kind of water that's coming off the property to the, and flowing to the west. There'll be a berm there, plus they'll be grading it and designing it so the water then flows to the east toward Cedar Heights Drive, toward those stormwater management facilities to the east. So after development occurs, it should substantially improve any sheet flow water runoff from this property.
The detention basins that are created because of this are located where?
On the east side, next to Cedar Heights Drive.
More to the southeast?
Well, there'll be,
northeast?
the first phase is to the southeast, but there'll be basins along the east side of the property, all along that east side, flowing to the southeast.
Okay, thank you. That was the questions that had been submitted to me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Ms. Howard, for the rec trail that's in front of that property right alongside Cedar Heights Drive, for this winter, I know we had issues last year with snow clearance there. Who's going to be responsible for clearance this year? Is it the city or is it the developer?
I would think that the property owner is responsible for clearing the sidewalk in front of their property. I
Okay.
wasn't aware that there was an issue with that.
In that particular section, it's a trail, so trails are not typically cleared. The city does have several priority trails that it clears, and I believe this is one that might be on the second list as we have time
Okay.
to remove snow and as weather conditions allow.
All right, thank you. So with that, any other questions or comments from council on item 19? Seeing none, and any from the gallery, then it's been motioned and seconded to approve.
We
yes.
do have one from Zoom. right?
Oh, please, yes, thank you.
John Lane.
Yes, Mr. Lane, just name and address for the record, please, sir. We'll wait a moment to get you connected here. We can't hear you just yet.
There we go.
All right, Mr. Lane, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me now, sir?
We can hear you just fine, thank you.
Want me to start over then?
Yes, please. We didn't catch anything until you just said, can you hear me now?
Okay, I may break up. I'm 1,000 miles away from you in a remote mountain area. I'm John Lane. I live at 3909 Legacy Lane in Cedar Falls. I'm the spokesperson for both neighboring HOAs. Don't mean to sound like a broken record, but just for the record, our group of 104 owners are still concerned with several items, some of which were just discussed prior to me coming online. We feel more comfortable after Chris Seavey presented the final site development plan to the Planning and Zoning at their last meeting. I also feel pretty confident that since Chris is the city planner in charge of this project, he should probably have enough clout to deal with LGC. While our HOAs would prefer LGC to start at the north end for several reasons, we now understand the water management issue is paramount for the entire development, and so that's why the city is promoting that starting point. Likewise, any of our other concerns are in your packet before you as I speak, but I will be brief. The total berm before construction was just laid out. That is going to happen. We were led to believe he would do the foliage, the entire length of the berm. Now I understand from the last testimony that will happen in phases. You're probably going to have 104 unhappy people. Likewise, your site development plan does indicate enough overflow parking, but I'm curious if the city will be willing to pay damage to Legacy Lane, which is privately owned, if some of their guests choose to park on our property. I pray LGC can find reliable, knowledgeable subs. I also pray they can get paid in a timely manner so they don't walk off the job and, worse yet, file a lien against LGC and Heartland Development. I recently found out it is under contract for $400,000 rather than the $1 million plus I was told 2.5 years ago by the real estate broker. That is a bargain. Prime location, 6.4 acres. So at this point, if it fails, I am more than willing to write a check to Heartland Development immediately, and I will build 4-unit single-story villas similar to the current Legacy Cove homes, one of which I'm an owner. Thank you. Enjoy your family for the holidays, and most importantly, be healthy, be careful. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lane. And for what it's worth, we did hear you perfectly inside the council chambers.
Thank you.
Okay, and does anyone else wish to speak on the item? Mr. Manning? Just name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Bob Manning, 2908 West 3rd Street in Cedar Falls. We happen to live in a twin home there, built by LGC, and I'm the executive officer from the Home Builders Association locally here, Cedar Valley Home Builders Association. And so I've had many dealings with Mr. Larson, have been familiar with the subs that he uses and that he wants to get the jobs done quickly and pay those people promptly. And he has a very good reputation in the home building industry, not only here locally, but throughout the state. He's done some very innovative things, and we're very pleased to see him start this new project. I was once a person who had a street redone and widened and the parking area narrowed. And so, boy, did we not want to see that. And I actually wasn't of a majority age at that point, so my mom and dad, my mother and father got involved with that. And so I saw the anguish that they had and the discomfort. And then remembering my mom saying to one of her neighbors, gosh, this turned out a lot better than we thought, and we're glad that they've done it now and that it's over with. So we see that frequently in development, that people are concerned, as they should be, but that once a luxury condominium project like this is finished, it will be a very good addition to Cedar Falls. We are not building enough attached housing in Cedar Falls, Iowa. We're roughly building about 350 homes in our Cedar Valley area, and our market studies say we should be building 450. The attached housing is one area for that. The low to moderate income is another area that have very high numbers, high demand, and limited supply. So we understand that not in my own backyard is a feeling that we all have if a project's close to us. But we like it somewhere else. So we highly encourage you to support this. We're anxious to see another part of Cedar Falls be developed with some quality condominiums, and as attached housing is very much a thing of the future for our communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Manning. And when you say we, are you speaking for the homeowners or the homeowners association?
We've had informal conversations about this. The board has not officially taken a position, but we are very frequently supportive of ongoing efforts. So we've helped support the schools when they've had bonding issues in the past, because schools are magnets and they attract housing. And when the schools have been remodeled and there's been additional cost to us as taxpayers, we've been very supportive of that. And we did have discussions like that at our board, but generally they say, Bob, you've got a little bit of a loose rope on this, but we'll always tighten the chain if need be.
Right. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Does anyone else from the gallery wish to speak on the item or from Zoom?
No one else.
Okay, seeing none, then we're at item 19, a resolution approving the preliminary plat of Creekside Luxury Condos. It's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Can I ask one other
Oh,
quick
yes, please.
question? Bob had mentioned
Aye.
Legacy Lane, and I believe that some of the homeowners mentioned it too as being a private road. Would it be possible for the developer to simply agree not to have the construction workers use that private road? Or would that be possible? We'll pass it along. Thank you.
Okay. Nick of time. All right, so we'll try that again. Resolution approving a preliminary plat of Creekside Luxury Condos, motion and second, and requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And just procedurally, item 20 is a resolution approving the final plat of Creekside Luxury Condos. Is there a motion to approve this item? Motion and seconded. Do we have any additional discussion, or is that all addressed in item 19? Anything from gallery? Okay, any Zoom? Okay, that makes sense. So it's been motion and seconded for approving the final plat of Creekside Luxury Condos and requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now that's, last piece of this was item 21, which is a resolution approving a planned residence RP zoning district site plan for construction of a multi-unit residential development in the vicinity of Cedar Heights Drive and Valley High Drive, and that's the property we've been talking about these last few minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motion and second. Any gallery or council questions or gallery discussion questions? Okay, seeing none, then it's been motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That brings us over to item 23, I believe. No, okay, so item 23 was covered in the main vote, so we're on item 24, which is a resolution receiving and filing the bids and approving and accepting the low bid of Peterson Contractors, the amount of $3.3 million for the Green Hill Road and South Main Street intersection improvement project. Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval. Second.
Motion and seconded. And Councilmember DeBury, you brought this forward for
I
discussion.
did. We got a very well-drawn-out letter and diagram from Mr. Boom regarding this intersection, where he asked about moving the crosswalk intersection a little bit further each direction for safety for pedestrian crossing. And I don't know if, I've never heard from engineers as to this is good or bad, but I was wondering, does this cause a difference in the cost of the estimate if we were to move the crosswalk down a bit?
I don't think it would significantly change the cost. We did have the consultant look into that, and we did provide a response to some of the safety issues that would be involved with maybe relocating that crossing. So there is some safety concerns that would have to be addressed.
So at some time, will we be advised as to whether they thought this was good or bad, or what their advice was?
Yeah, I can get an update to the council on what their recommendations were, certainly.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'm seeing Councilmember Harding is reading the item now, and a few others are looking. So if you have, I just want to give time so you have a chance to look at it before, in case you have questions. So let me know when you're comfortable with me proceeding.
it'll take me a minute.
Well,
So,
I don't want to do this prematurely. So
yeah.
it was in the council packet, or that was in the mailboxes, so some might not have seen it ahead of time. We have a few minutes here. If you can just stand at ease for a moment.
It was basically moving the crosswalks between 75 and 100 feet, and then also we talked about a light, so pedestrians could push, but that doesn't stop the traffic, because it's not a red light.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it was the same thing, because I just opened this up. I guess, I don't have any comment at this point in time.
Okay, so any other questions or comments from council or the gallery on this? Okay, seeing none, then for item 24, it's been motioned and seconded to receive and file the bids and approve and accept the low bid of Peterson Contractors for the Green Hill Road and South Main Intersection Improvement Project, and this requires a roll call vote.
Nay.
6 voting aye, 1 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And over to 26, that's a resolution setting December 20th, 2021 as the date of a public hearing on a proposed ordinance establishing new boundaries for wards and precincts. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded, and just want to remind for the conversation that this is in regard to setting the date. And so I know it's going to involve some rationale of whether we should do it now or wait. So I'm going to be a little bit free in here, but I want to make sure we don't get too much into the weeds on the actual design of the map, because that's what the public hearing is supposed to be for. But I do appreciate that you're going to need some rationale to say, yes, we should delay or we have some other action rather than just approving it. So I'll be very loose with the rules here. So that was from Councilmember DeBrewer, and if you'd like to start us off here.
Sure. Well, we've received no data or information regarding this item, so I think it's premature to set a hearing date on something that we've not been given any notification on.
Okay. Other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
I've noticed in, I guess it's Iowa City in particular, this exact topic, the council is being presented with 3 different versions. I'd like to see that option for us as well.
Okay, so I'm wondering, that would it be appropriate then to have that as a referral, to have 3 separate items brought forward? I guess we could do it in here. For Mr. Rogers, do you have a recommendation for how that should come forward for having 2 additional ward maps developed for council to consider? Didn't mean to put you on the
My
spot.
only concern is the approaching deadline. If staff would have time to put that all together in time to present alternative versions. The person who's been working on it, Corey Hines, I'm not sure that he's here, but I think that would be appropriately brought as a referral, but a referral back to the next regular council meeting so action can be taken on whichever boundaries are approved by council.
Okay, so it could still come up tonight, though. It could be decided tonight to have those 3 maps or the 2 additional maps prepared, unless you have a concern about that, Mr. Rogers.
No, I think the agenda gave sufficient public notice that this is an item under discussion, even though it was set the hearing. This current discussion is certainly relevant to setting a date.
Okay, so with the timeline for this, can staff speak to when this board map is due to the Secretary of State and how the timeline led to us seeing it tonight rather than sooner?
Sure. So the actual deadline to the Secretary of State is January 4th. People may recall that there was a delay actually from the state, and that got us to this point. So
Obviously, the first driven by the census data, which, as everybody knows, was actually all delayed too than when our normal time that we get census data. Then it went through the state, and we were waiting for them. So unfortunately, they've kind of put us in a time crunch, and you'll see many other cities talking about the same thing. In fact, we asked, just like other cities, can we get an extension from the Secretary of State, and we were denied that extension. So, and I know, again, other cities have tried to ask that same question and have been denied.
Jennifer, can I ask Jennifer a question, follow up on
Please,
that?
please.
Why were no deadlines ever given to the council? I don't believe that on the notice in our packet, it doesn't mention anything in here about deadlines.
Oh, sure, sorry. We could have, yeah, we could have included that. I apologize for that.
So looking at the December 20th date for a public hearing, I wonder if it might make sense to have an additional special meeting to look at some of those additional options, because otherwise it's really the 20th. And then when's our next council meeting in January?
It's January 3rd, so
January
actually
3rd.
we were debating whether we were going to have to waive the rules on the third reading on the 3rd.
Mhm.
What's
Yeah.
the fine?
Say again?
What's the fine if it's not done by January 4th?
Well, we actually tried to ask that question, and Jackie or Kevin might be able to help me on this. I don't know that there's a fine for not meeting the deadline, but if we send it in and there's problems with the map from the Secretary of State, then we're responsible for those costs of those changes, or I don't know if I want to say penalties, but that's, so there is actually no fine to file it late. If everything's fine when we send it in, it would be okay. The problem's going to be is if there's things the Secretary of State doesn't like about it. That's, and Jackie or Kevin, is that, am I confirming that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I could make a suggestion, is set the public hearing for the 20th, and staff would try to get all of those, the three options, if that's what the council wishes to bring forward. And then if it's just not enough time on the 20th, we can continue the hearing to a special meeting date.
Okay. And then we have several days that week prior to the holidays. So it could be like maybe Wednesday the 22nd or even up to the 23rd. We won't keep everybody here on Christmas morning. But yeah, I think that would make sense, and that's not necessarily a decision that needs to be made tonight then. If we do the public hearing on the 20th, it could decide at that meeting to continue it for an additional meeting. Now, if that does happen, and we decide to have a continuance of the hearing, could the evidence or the materials be changed or added to at that point, or are we limited to what was provided in the initial hearing? In case you want to see tweaks come to that next night. Maybe that's a Mr. Rogers question.
Yeah, I think that would be.
Maybe.
I'm sorry, if there's a question pending for me, I didn't get any of
Okay.
that dialogue.
So what we're asking, Mr. Rogers, is if we have the public hearing on the 20th and council has some suggested or requested tweaks or changes to bring to a special meeting that would be just a continuance of that hearing, let's say hypothetically on the 22nd or a few days later, can that material be introduced into that hearing, those changes, or are we limited to what was presented to that first hearing only?
Assuming there's a second public hearing to consider the changes, that'd be fine.
Okay. So is that just semantics then, that we didn't necessarily continue the public hearing, but instead we would hold a second public hearing?
Yeah. As long as there's notice of the public hearing, then all those changes could be considered then. I worry about a continuance of the hearing if there's substantive changes made.
Mm-hmm. And what's the requirement for the lead time on announcing for a public hearing? Is it just the 24 hours?
So for open meetings purposes, it's 24 hours.
Okay. Okay, does that help council with knowing what we can do going forward?
I do have a
Okay.
question, Mr. Mayor.
Say again?
Would this public hearing notice need to be published in the newspaper? If the second one?
Absolutely.
Then there's a 4-day lead at least.
Okay. Don't we know a guy? Can help us out? Is that what power you have? Okay. So that's good to know too. All right, any other questions or how council wants to proceed with this hearing date?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
I guess I would emphasize the fact that we're deciding the voting wards for the next 10 years, and it's important to do whatever we can to get a just and balanced precinct and ward map, which is why I thought the three versions would be ideal. And then I forwarded some comments of one of the wards so far that can be reviewed and then adjust for the 3 versions we have going forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. So yes, we'll want to see that as a referral and to vote on that, to have the 3 as a separate item. So I'll bring that up then. So that item is a resolution setting December 20th, 2021 as the date of the public hearing on the proposed ordinance establishing new boundaries for wards and precincts. Any final questions or comments? Or any from the gallery, from Zoom? Okay. So, and this is just for the date itself. Requires a roll call vote.
Nay.
5 voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. So then the next item is 27, resolution setting December 20th, 2021 as the date of a public hearing on the proposal to undertake a public improvement project for the Main Street reconstruction project and to authorize acquisition of private property of said project. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Motion and seconded, open for discussion. Councilmember DeBrewer, I believe you brought this forward again, or to us?
Yeah, we had a work session on this a couple weeks ago or a month ago. Since then, we've had an election. We will have a couple different council members. I just would like the new council members to be able to see this information before we move forward with the public hearing.
Okay, so do you have a motion to, or an amendment to change the date to the new fiscal year, or excuse me, the new calendar year?
I would just want to vote no, and then as the staff is able to schedule it after we get the council set, then that would be fine. So I think it's premature to set a date.
Okay. So other thoughts from council on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
I could offer the amendment to change the date of the public hearing to be January 3rd.
Okay, is that, any concerns about that from a procedural perspective? Mr. Rogers or Mr. Gaines, to have that on the 3rd?
Could you please repeat the motion, Mayor? I didn't get it.
Yeah, the amendment to the motion was to change the resolution date from December 20th to January 3rd as the date of the public hearing on the proposed undertaking of the public improvement project for the Main Street reconstruction project. So any issues, red flags there legally?
I don't see any.
Okay.
The only one I would say, Mayor, and I'd have to talk to the clerk about this, is there's requirements on setting a public hearing. You can't do it too far out and you can't do it too far in. Maybe the easiest thing would be that we come back on the 20th and set the hearing for the 3rd. Yeah, I don't know what the dates are on that. Do you recall, Ms. Danielson?
We can set the date. It's just a matter of when it's published. So we could set it tonight, but wait to publish it.
Okay, so just to say, technically, we can make that happen if council desires. So the amendment is then to change that date to January 3rd and rather than December 20th. Is there a motion for that? Okay, I guess we have the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and second, and I'll open it for discussion to change that date to after the new term.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Miller.
I can understand the desire to do this. I think you could argue this the other way, just the same. We've been talking about Main Street for 5 years. How long? 3 years? And I understand the timing of it, but we could just as well take anything else off this agenda because we've got new council people coming in. So I don't agree that we should change the date.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Miller. Any other sentiments or concerns, questions, thoughts? Councilmember Harding?
I have, well, not on this motion, not pertinent to the motion, but to the original, so I'll wait.
Okay. So anything else for changing the date? Yes, Councilmember.
My other issue was trying to get it off of the holiday so that people who wanted to attend, it wasn't during the middle of the holiday week.
Okay. Other thoughts? All right, seeing none, then this is just the amendment. And is this a voice vote, Mr. Rogers, for the amendment?
Correct, Mayor.
So this is only to change the date from December 20th to January 3rd. Let's see, so all in favor of making that change to January 3rd, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so let's see a show of hands for aye. Saying 1, 2, 3 to change the date, and then Councilmember Sires has 4 to change the date, and then nay. 1, 2, 3. So that amendment does pass to change from December 20th to January 2021 to January 3rd, 2022. And we'll make a note of that for the notification in the newspaper if this passes. So that brings us back to the original motion as amendment, which is the resolution setting January 3rd as the date of the public hearing for a public improvement project for Main Street reconstruction and to authorize acquisition of private property. So with that amendment, is there any final discussion?
I have a question.
Councilor Harding?
Just on the wording, to make sure I understand 100% the vote, it's a public hearing on the project and a public hearing on to authorize the acquisition, we're not actually voting on authorizing the acquisition at this point in time, correct?
My understanding is it would be the,
The maximum
Doing
amount
that.
of acquisition, I believe.
that's correct. So for Mr. Gaines, if you could just clarify that for us?
Mr. Burr is correct. It's for the maximum amount of acquisition that would be needed.
It doesn't mean you will necessarily use it. It's the most that you could use.
And remember that each individual acquisition will come before the council as well, so throughout the course of that project. So it wouldn't be the first and last time you would see property acquisition along the corridor.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Cruz.
So between now and January 3rd, then we will have the opportunity to address our speaker's concern and other options within the roundabout on 12th and 6th and 18th.
Yes, and that's already been, or it's already in the design work, as I understand it. I've had conversations with staff about this very thing.
Right.
For the
And
taking of that
I've had
property.
conversations with property owners that would and could modify what we've been working on. So I've discussed that with staff already.
Have discussed that, yes.
Okay.
Discussed that. Okay, so any other questions, comments from council, from the gallery, from Zoom?
No one.
Okay, seeing none. Then it's been motioned and seconded to set January 3rd as the date of the public hearing on the proposal to undertake a public improvement project for Main Street reconstruction and authorize acquisition of private property of said project. So with that motion and seconded, it requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us out of the resolution calendar and into bills and claims. Is there a motion to approve bills and claims for
moved.
December 6th?
So moved.
Motion and seconded. Any council discussion? Seeing none, then anything from the gallery, then this requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have any referrals tonight? Councilor Cruz, would you want to bring yours forward for that change in the
As
count of-
you have mentioned, or I've mentioned, and you've confirmed that I'd like to make a referral that for the public hearing on the new boundaries for the wards and precincts, we have 3 versions to choose from when we do so.
Okay, so it's motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open it for council discussion about having 2 additional maps prepared for deliberation. Councilmember Harding.
Question. I like options, so I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but what, I guess that's what we would see, is how different can the maps be? Are we limited within how limited are we to have options, I guess?
Yeah,
Do we
Mr.
know?
Gaines? Sure.
I do not. I'm not familiar with the rules and procedures set forth in the code. That would be more of a Corey question. He's going to be presenting that as he goes through and presents those next time. So
Okay.
I think we can have him at least work towards other maps, obviously staying within the rules that have been established by the state of Iowa, but and bring those options back as well. So.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Gaines, could you send out an email with Mr. Hines' info, just like what are some of the basic rules, and maybe there's a link that he can
Sure.
provide to
Yep.
us?
Absolutely.
Okay, just so we know what our limits are on making changes or additional versions.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, yes.
voting precincts that are moved from one ward to a different ward, are those voting precincts then not used, or do they just move to the new ward?
That question
I'm
makes
wondering how
sense?
much confusion that is to the public. Voting precincts that are no longer in the ward, so they're now in a different ward, are they still used, or do they have to find all new voting precincts when they change the boundaries?
I understand, if you're changing the map for the ward, all the precincts have to change as well. I mean, they have to fit inside their.
The precincts within the ward, but is that your question, Mr. Poor?
Yeah,
Maybe
do they have to come up with completely different precincts then?
Absolutely. So the ward is, each ward is consisted of 3 precincts.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, so I don't know this, and maybe I'm going way further than I should, but my understanding is they have to establish the ward and then the precincts within them, but that may be backwards. That's a better question for Mr. Hines.
And the voting centers, in theory, they could stay the same.
But they don't.
But they might not,
Right.
just the same.
Especially if the precinct doesn't even include one
Exactly.
at that
Yep.
point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Cruz.
just to comment, Mr. Harding, doing a little research at the state code level, there's census blocks, I believe is the term they use, that they can move between wards, and then legislative boundaries is another barrier that they have to deal with. But they have to take the population of Cedar Falls by the 2020 census and divide by 5, get within a variance of that. So there's puzzle put together, Legos, whatever, that's how it works.
Okay, any other deliberation for this referral to create 2 additional maps for consideration by council? Okay, seeing none, it's been motioned and seconded. Is this a roll call or a voice vote, Mr. Rogers?
Voice.
What's voice? Or, yeah, okay. So, Ms. Danielson, thank you. So this will be a voice vote, motion and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that did pass then from voice vote. And so we will have this 2 additional maps prepared for that hearing date of January 3rd. Excuse me.
20th.
Of the December 20th. I was looking at the wrong one. So December 20th. Any other council referrals tonight? Seeing none, then that takes us over to city council updates. Do we have any updates tonight from council? Seeing none, or requests for an update? Okay, seeing none there. Mr. Gaines, do we have any staff updates tonight?
No staff updates, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So that'll take us over into our item for executive session, item 29. And this will be a little unusual because we'll have a discussion in executive session and then come back for item 30 and 31 out to here to the chambers in order to vote on those 2 items. But before we can do that, we need to have the confidential discussion first in the council chambers. So this item is an executive session to discuss collective bargaining per Iowa Code 20.17.3 as negotiating sessions, strategy meetings of public employers, mediation, and the deliberative process of arbitrators, and property acquisition as a separate item, property acquisition per Iowa Code 21.51J to discuss the purchase or sale of particular real estate where disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the government body would have to pay for that property or reduce the price the government body would receive for that property. Is there a motion to move to executive session for these items?
Second.
Motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. And I'll note too, for the newly elected council members, we are bringing them also into the executive session as listeners, because this item will affect them as well in the long term, so we want them to be aware. So they are welcome to join us as well tonight. So with that, I will move us over to executive session. Thank you very much for attending tonight. You're welcome to stay. There will be a few votes after, and we will, but we don't know how long that will take. So thank you. Well, good evening again. We have finished our executive session tonight, which was item 29 on our city council packet. We motioned then to move into an executive session, or council approved that. So we're on item 30, which is a resolution approving a tentative agreement with Teamsters Union Local 238 Parks and Public Works and authorizing execution of a contract. Is there a motion to approve this item?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open it for council questions or discussion. Seeing none. And anything from Zoom for questions?
There's no one left on Zoom.
No one left on Zoom. Okay. So with that, item 30 has been motioned and seconded, and it requires a roll call vote. And then Councilmember Sires is not joining us, so that will be.
All right. All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And then item 31 is a resolution approving a tentative agreement with Teamsters Union Local 238 Public Safety and authorizing execution of a contract. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any council discussion on this item? Okay, any from the gallery? Seeing none. Then motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr.
Second.
Mayor.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.